Well, if you don't have the trust that when you raise your hand and have the courage to speak up, number one, someone's actually going to listen. So you have to have listen up paired with speak up. But if they're going to be slapped down for even bringing a suggestion up, they're never going to do it again. And the word's going to get out very quickly. So when you have a culture of speak up, that means people have the trust that they can raise a concern and they won't be retaliated against, and that their concern will be fairly evaluated and, if appropriate, a change made.
Welcome to Season 5 of Manage Self, Lead Others with host Nina Sunday. This season, as well as workplace culture, we're going deeper into embedding innovation, AI, and invisible patterns shaping how we lead. Each episode, bold thinkers join us to explore how to lead with intention, elevate team culture, and stay future ready. The future of leadership starts with the questions we ask.
Tom Fox is the voice of compliance and founder of the award-winning compliance podcast network.net, the only podcast network in compliance. Tom Fox is also co-founder of Texas Hill Country Podcast Network, dedicated to telling stories from West Texas. Having won over 50 awards for podcast hosting and producing, Tom Fox was honoured with a Webby for his series Looking Back on 9/11. An executive leader at the C-Suite Network, the world's most trusted network of C-suite leaders, Tom Fox is author of over 50 books, including a children's series, Kids and Compliance. Well, welcome, Tom Fox. It's a true delight to have you here.
Nina, it's my pleasure to be with you today.
And of course, you are the world compliance expert, and I have a chance now to ask you all the questions about compliance that I think our listeners might have ears for. So what is it about compliance that most leaders misunderstand?
Properly seen, compliance, effective compliance equates to more efficient business operations and greater profitability.
So do you think that many leaders, whether it's some, many, or most, view compliance as an unnecessary irritation?
I would say they view it as a necessary irritation simply because they have to comply with various laws, standards, and regulations across the world. But what they're missing is that effective compliance actually makes your business run better, and that's what makes it more efficient, and that's what makes you more profitable.
So they're seeing it as something that is a must do, but without embracing the fact that there's a benefit for them, that it can actually improve profitability. Is that right?
Correct.
And so if they misunderstand that benefit of improving compliance and even being ahead of the curve, if you like, what's that costing them?
What that is costing them is not understanding that good compliance controls are essentially financial controls. And if you have good financial controls around your business, you don't bleed out money. In the United States, we use the phrase fraud, waste, and abuse. Well, waste just means you're losing money. And who wants to lose money or have money go out, not because of fraud, not because of abuse, simply because you're not watching it? Well, that's what compliance allows you to do, is to watch everything because you have controls in place.
So, of course, there's one side of the curve is you're avoiding getting into trouble by being compliant, but how can leaders see the other side of the curve, the positive side, which is they can make better decisions, they can move faster, perhaps earn trust with their clients?
Well, you said a lot in that question. So let me see if I can unpack it a little bit. You don't have brakes on a car to go slow. You have brakes on a car so you can go fast. And that's what compliance allows you to do. If you have guardrails in the form of internal controls, which are the backbone of your financial system in your enterprise risk management system in your organization, you can go much more quickly and much more efficiently because you already have those controls in place. Those controls in the United States got put in place because of massive scandals around the millennium and the dot-com boom. But the scandals led to controls which have now been refined, which allow companies to literally operate more efficiently. But you also brought up a very interesting component of this, Nina, which is that it's trust, it's culture, it's leaders conveying institutional justice and institutional fairness in the way they run things, and employees responding to that. If you feel like you're going to get a fair shake, you're going to act like it and you're going to work harder. If, on the other hand, it doesn't matter what you do, the boss is going to favor the person they're having an affair with, their cousin, their business partner, or their friend over you, you're not going to think it's a place that you can succeed.
Oh, absolutely. It's for the people working there as well to have faith and trust in their employer as well as clients. You triggered something in my memory, which if I said the word Dieselgate, would that ring a bell with you?
Well, and Dieselgate to me means the Volkswagen emissions testing scandal from 2015.
And they had to lose about 7,000 team members in order to rebrand and just really go back to the drawing board. So there is issues around compliance that perhaps project managers or marketing managers don't understand, that if you follow the rules, actually you can bounce forward more further. You can leap forward, make quantum leaps.
Absolutely. And let's just stick with project managers, since you brought that up. If you're a project manager, you name the construction site, whether it's an oil refinery, whether it's an apartment complex, whether it's any sort of manufacturing facility, who are you going to bring in as third parties to do the specialized work? You want to bring in the best contractors, not necessarily the cheapest, although that's certainly a consideration, but you don't want to bring in your brother-in-law. You don't want to bring in someone who's dodgy. You don't want to do business with someone who is always suing everyone. You want to bring in someone that there's a good business rationale for doing business with them. And when you look into their background, called due diligence, you see they have a relatively clean slate. And that's the people you want to do business with, other ethical companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, one of the things I'm accredited in ProSci change management and ADCAR, but one of the things that sometimes the project managers who are deep into the nuts and bolts of the change forget is to bring the people along with them, to bring the hearts and minds of the people that have to operate with the new system. So have you got any comments around making sure that the people have the ability to speak up and share their concerns and be fully informed when there is that sort of a change or rollout?
Certainly. So let's pick up on the words you use, speak up. And I'm going to equate that to being a whistleblower. Well, most people think a whistleblower means I've seen something illegal, I've seen something wrong, and I'm going to report it. But you bring up an even more important and indeed more powerful part of speak up. And that is, there's a better way to do this. There's a different way to do this that will make the company money. Well, if you don't have the trust that when you raise your hand and have the courage to speak up, number one, someone's actually going to listen. So you have to have listen up paired with speak up. But if they're going to be slapped down for even bringing a suggestion up, they're never going to do it again. And the word's going to get out very quickly. So when you have a culture of speak up, that means people have the trust that they can raise a concern and they won't be retaliated against, and that their concern will be fairly evaluated and, if appropriate, a change made. But that's not just for something that's bad or illegal or immoral or nefarious. That's for, hey, there's a better way to do that. And if we're invested in that better way, we're going to work harder. So speak up is absolutely critical for moving forward and making your culture even better.
Yes, Tom. And what I'm thinking now is that if leaders of organisations and of these initiatives that require changes of behaviour from the wider team, if they think they are the sole supplier of all the answers and that the team can't raise questions that might create newer answers or better answers. Do you think that's part of the mindset that leaders need to think about? It's like, don't see yourself as being the sole arbiter of all the knowledge, that the knowledge can actually come from the team members. Would that be right?
Absolutely. You very graciously introduced me as an expert in compliance. I may or may not be, but if there's 10 people I'm talking to in compliance, they're going to have a greater expertise and knowledge than me, simply because it's more people. They're going to have diversity in their views. They're going to have differences. They're going to see things differently than I have. And if I can take that information and wed it to what I already have, we are going to be stronger as a team.
Now, of course, you run the Compliance Podcast Networks. What are the trends right now in compliance for people to take on board?
What's interesting, Nina, is that compliance is now ingrained in every corporation. It's a function like HR, like internal audit, like finance, like technology. It's a part of every corporation. And so what's driving compliance now is really not regulatory or legal innovation. It's the fact that if you want to do business with another company, they want to know, do you do business ethically and in compliance? And they may audit your compliance program. And so it's almost a business to business requirement now. And that's what is driving compliance. And you've several times talked about the wide variety of stakeholders in every company, obviously employees, but third parties you do business with, customers who buy your product. They all want to know, are you doing business ethically and in compliance? So it's really becoming ingrained in the culture of actually doing business, certainly in the United States, and I think in most parts of the world, certainly the parts that we play in.
Now, compliance can almost be invisible behind the scenes. Is there a trend in, just as in customer service, companies were publishing their customer service charter? Is there anything equivalent to that savvy organisations are publishing on their websites about compliance?
So many companies will take incidents which happened inside their organization and use them for training purposes internally. And so they'll change it into a story. So if someone violated some rule or regulation, it was serious, they might do a training episode around it. And typically what I've seen is use this internal training. There are some companies, major companies like Walmart, like Apple, that publish annual compliance statistics literally for the public. And that's why I'm aware of them. So yes, I have seen that.
Yes, so you're reminding me that there are examples or cautionary tales, if you like, that can be used with organisations internally with their teams so they're educated as to what to look out for and not to just let things slide. Have you got an interesting cautionary tale that perhaps started out as a mess and then ended up being something that was repaired and much better than before?
So I just got finished with one where it was a, let me just say European company to disguise where they're from. And they had an operation in your part of the world, Asia Pacific.
Right.
And for reasons that were never made clear, that Asia Pacific operation was given great autonomy and they didn't have much oversight. And you can see where this is going. The managing director of the Asia Pacific operation ended up engaging in fraud with a vendor, got kickbacks for assigning contracts to that vendor. And fortunately, it was discovered, but it was because obviously the person who engaged in the fraud was wrong and engaged in illegal activity, but there was no corporate oversight. So compliance means, and my wife is a process engineer, and she continually reminds me that a process engineering system requires a second set of eyes, as she would call it. So you need oversight over your process to make sure it's being followed correctly. Whereas Ronald Reagan would say, trust but verify. So that second set of eyes can verify that everything's being done correctly. And in the instance I mentioned, the learning opportunity was we had a failure, but we had no oversight to discover that failure. So it's important, whether you call it the home office, whether you call it the corporate headquarters, that there be oversight of controls and policies and procedures and actions of those who may be in a different location than you.
And Tom, what you're describing at a macro level can also be applied at a micro level, because I remember when I wanted to upgrade one of my team members to do the financial confirmations that I thought only I could do because only I knew the finances, the financial figures. We called it 4 eyes control. In other words, 2 sets of eyes. And all she did was prepare, and then I would check. So that saved me an enormous amount of time, and I was able to promote someone into a more interesting role for her because I trusted that she would prepare and I would check, and that was a happy win for both of us. So yes, having that 2 sets of eyes means that you can actually assign or delegate to perhaps someone with potential who isn't yet able to do it on their own, but with oversight can actually be a more responsible role, which keeps people on board. I mean, keeps people happy. They feel like they're growing. Because psychological safety is really so important. And if people get blamed for mistakes, they're going to hide them, aren't they?
Yes.
So we have to find a non-blames culture where they're rewarded for bringing up issues that maybe are of a compliance nature. So I'll bring you back to an experience I once had where I attended a simulation that was done inside an empty courtroom. They took over a courtroom for the day, and the cautionary tale was around a forklift that had left the keys in the ignition, and then some after hours team members had actually started up the forklift and sort of created a bit of damage. Could have created loss of life, really, if you think about it. And so, interestingly, my office had a warehouse downstairs with a forklift, and I became very compliant with putting the keys away. And people say, "Where are the keys? Where are the keys?" They're not allowed to stay in the ignition. So these are the little things that individuals in organisations can make a difference. You got any other examples like that, Tom?
Absolutely. And if I could take that a step further, to continually remind people of that. So have a safety moment where you say, take the keys out of the forklift, and you remind the people, we're not saying you're a bad person. We're not saying you can't drive a forklift. We're making sure someone who's not qualified to get on that piece of equipment doesn't do so, either by intentionally or by mistake.
We also talk about leaders asking questions rather than coming with the answers. What's a question that a leader who has curiosity and wants to win the hearts and minds of their team members, what's a question they can ask their team about compliance that might create motivation to keep their eyes open for where we can improve compliance?
What I'm always intrigued by is innovation. And, we always talk about, or I talk about the mad scientist locked in the castle inventing something after 6 years of research. Right. And that's a great story, but that never happens. But there are people who might look at the same thing you and I look at every day and say, wonder if I can do that different. Or they look at something and say, oh, let me just add this to it. Or they have something in their head that says, I think there's a different formula for me to do this. Can I find the natural science, the natural world experience that allows me to put it into this formula? So they're building on what's already there. They just have the vision to see something different.
Yes. Well, of course, I'm reminded of the principle of Kaizen, which is continuous improvement, and that people's job is not just to do the job, but to also to think about how to improve the way they do the job. Is that still something, an approach or a philosophy that you see evident in organisations these days, or has it had its day?
Well, I would phrase it a little bit differently, because one of the leaders in our field of compliance and ethics in America back in 2017, she was with the government, and she created this document of what should go into a best practices compliance program. And at the end, she said, this is important, and I don't mean to say it's not, but what I want compliance officers to do is ask questions. Right. Ask questions of, why do we do it this way? How do we do it this way? Is there a different way to do it? And so I would say Kaizen and continuous improvement is in many ways just being curious and asking questions. And I've always tried to maintain that curiosity and ask questions. So if we can say asking questions is continually monitoring, leading to continuous improvement, I think we're saying that's a Kaizen.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm reminded of an audit question that is often used for financial audits, which is, what is being done? Who is not doing what? And so it's looking for not only what is happening, but what is not happening.
Well, if I can take you to the field of literature, one of my favorite characters of all time is Sherlock Holmes. And
Yes.
a key clue in one of his most famous stories is the dog that didn't bark. And why didn't the dog bark? Because it wasn't a stranger who stole the racehorse.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to read that novel.
That's the adventure of Silver Blaze. The dog that didn't bark was the clue.
Thank you. I'll put a link in the show notes, not only to compliancepodcastnetwork.net and your email, but I'll also put how to get that novel on Amazon. So, look, we've run out of time, Tom. It's been a lovely conversation. Is there anything in closing that you want to say that to tell the world about?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. We had the opportunity to meet at C-Suite, and we just really bonded over what C-Suite's about, but what we are both doing in our respective localities. So keep on trucking.
Likewise, Tom. It's a real pleasure. Thanks so much. If you want to explore more about compliance, visit compliancepodcastnetwork.net, and I'll be sharing a short highlight from this conversation on LinkedIn. My name is Nina Sunday, and this is Manage Self, Lead Others. Until next time, stay curious, stay compliant, and keep noticing what is not being done.
Manage Self, Lead Others has launched the book, available on Amazon, paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. Not transcripts, but it's Nina Sunday's reflections on the big ideas and insights from each guest, and is adventure calling. If podcasting is the new white paper, then a travel retreat is the new corporate offsite. Short retreats in exotic locations are launching this year, so head to ninasunday.com to express your interest and be part of this learning meets travel chapter for leaders, people managers, and entrepreneurs. Plus, looking for a conference speaker or workshop facilitator to up-level your team in Australia or anywhere in the world? Visit brainpowertraining.com.au or ninasunday.com. Until you tune in next time.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number, 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number, save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.